الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we'll summarize all the arguments, discussions that we were having in the last couple of weeks and months on atheism and Islam. And in many ways, inshallah ta'ala, this will be like a khulasa, a summary of this discussion, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, today and for the future, that we can rely on and we can use to help us deal with these ideas. Even though, like we said, a lot of what we mentioned in detail, we should go back to that. But hopefully we will try to do it today in about an hour or so, summarize all 14 lessons that we passed. So 14 hours in one, inshallah, because there's so many ideas we said, and so many principles, we need to have clarity. And this is one of the problems of today's time. There's so much information, and it just scatters in the mind of the person. So sometimes you just need to have at least the principles, the blueprint, what should I say, where should I go, and then from there you can go back. We're also trying our best to take a look at some of the biggest issues with atheism. But first we have to begin with general principles. So before we go into discussion of Allah's existence and the atheism and its problems, first let's begin with some general principles. So the first thing we know, everyone acts in accordance to their worldview or their aqidah. So that's the first thing we have to start with. And when you talk to an atheist or you find a Muslim or whoever, everyone's coming from their aqidah. قال الله تعالى قل كل يعمل على شاكلته فربكم أعلم من هو أهدى سبيلا. Say, O Muhammad, each one does according to his shakila, his religion, his way, his intentions, and your Lord knows best of him whose path is right. Chapter 17, verse 84. So that's a qa'idah. The ulama, they mention everybody, anybody, when he writes, when he speaks, when he discusses, when he questions, when he argues, is coming from his worldview. So when you talk to an atheist, you have to know from the beginning, the questions he or she is posing is coming from their principles they believe in, their worldview, their epistemology, ontology, axiology, whatever else you think of. It's coming from what they have. A Muslim, likewise, coming from what we have. So we have to know in the beginning, because the question is only a product of the view. If someone asks you, for example, why does God exist, or how do you know? The question before we answer to figure out, well, where are you coming from? Right? I have to first figure out where your source is. So that's the first benefit. Secondly, atheists, their epistemology, how they know things. All right? Epistemology is a fancy word for theory of knowing. So their epistemology, it informs their ontology. In other words, what they believe in is based on what they think they can find out. Atheists, based on what they think they can find out, epistemology, what they think they know, it determines what they believe in. And similarly, as Muslims, we have a different epistemology, we have a wider tools of what we or how we know things, so therefore we know more things. So, because atheists restrict their epistemology, they restrict their ways of knowing to rational and empirical evidences. Remember we said before, the usul of ilhad, the foundations and the principles are many, and the two of the biggest is they venerate the intellect and they venerate science. So if you ask them, what's your sense of evidence and knowledge, they're always going to say logical, rational arguments, or they're going to bring you empirical scientific studies and theories. So because they restrict their epistemology, the way of knowing, to two sources, and then on top of that, they restrict everything to materialism, right? That's another belief to have, everything is material. Then by result, they have to reject everything else that will come from other than those sources. So as a result, they reject evidences from wahi, revelation, because they don't believe in revelation. And what is revelation? What kind of evidence is it? We said it's testimony. It's khabar. It's a report. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Jibreel, told Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, told us khabar. So they reject revelation, testimony, evidence, and they reject all non-material entities. So from their own worldview, they cannot believe in Allah, because He's immaterial, in the sense He's not a creation, and He doesn't fit into their way of knowing. You can't see Him, and you can't do qiyas. So you see, When you confirm the antecedent, right, the conclusion or the consequent from the beginning, you have to know. When he says, what's your evidence? The question should be, how we're going to know? Because if you say, what's evidence? He's only asking you two things. Rational, scientific. If you bring anything else, he's not taking it. If it's non-material, he's not taking it. So the problem is, we have to start talking about why. Why do you only limit it? Why don't you take other forms? But also you can see why he won't or she won't even have the ability, had you brought those evidences, unless they're fair-minded, to accept from you anyways. So if you know this, then you can see already the way we're going to approach them. I mean, we'll talk about the end. From the angle of advice, we should be much more gentle, right, and much more wise when we deal with people. Because it's not good enough to assume everyone's going to come from rational arguments, as we'll see. Not everybody's atheist because he's rational. In fact, we're going to argue it's irrational. Right? So it's nothing to do with rationality. It's everything to do with personal approach or upbringing or other things. So with those general principles down, let's talk about a summary of the evidences for Allah's existence. So we mentioned throughout the lessons, we know Allah exists and we have proof for it. So before we discuss and before you critique the atheist or any non-belief, it's always good to make a positive case for God's existence. It's not good enough to do a negative, right, case where you argue against them and you don't bring anything in its place. And that's the mistake when it comes to da'wah. If someone asks you for Allah's, with the existence of Allah or proof Islam is correct, you bring a positive case. You don't have to attack them because he might not be upon anything. So one of the mistakes sometimes happens, we worry too much in critiquing and we're not presenting. So we should start first with presenting our case. So how do we know Allah exists, subhanahu wa ta'ala? We have a number of evidences. There are multiple, right? So many. But we focused on the following, and these are very strong evidences. Number one, Dalil Fitri, the evidence of the fitrah. And we studied that in detail. The evidence of the fitrah means we know Allah exists innately because Allah created us to affirm His creation, so His existence. Allah created us to affirm His existence. Dalil Fitrah means we're born with it, hardwired, or in this case we're going to say born with that. And we know this, Dalil Fitrah, textually, in the Quran and Sunnah, and scientifically in the studies that I mentioned. So now, obviously the atheist doesn't accept this, right? So obviously, how do we present the Dalil Fitrah? We're going to remind ourselves of how we can position it. But what is the Dalil Fitrah? Allah's existence is innate. It's innate. We're born, but confirming Creator. And this is proven to us in the Quran, Surah Rum, Hadith Abu Hurairah fi Bukhari and Muslim, and then we have scientific studies. So we corroborate all of those. Quran, Sunnah, and then science. The scientific studies we mentioned were two of them. One of them was both from Oxford University, Justin Barrett's research, Born Believers, and Olivia Petrovich, her work. Right? I think it was those two works, right? Those two works you mentioned. So you can take it scientifically and you can bring it intellectually. So how does it work now? Remember, we said before continuing, presenting dalil, you have to do it correctly. You can't just say a study. It's not dalil. How does a study work? So when you bring an evidence, whether it's logical, aqli, or scientific, like hissi, like empirical evidence, or naqli, textual evidence, you have to break it down for the person how it works. Otherwise, he's going to tell you study, you tell him a study, both of us are not going nowhere here. So one thing we have to avoid is not just telling people studies and Allah said, okay, Allah said, how does it work? Here's a study, how does it work? So we said you can present the Dalil al-Fitri three ways. The best way is to present it as a proper basic belief. In other words, the Dalil al-Fitrah is axiomatic. It doesn't need proof. Once we say we're born believing Allah, khalas, that's a dalil. It's fitri. Fitri means like math. Fitri means like science, like cause and effect. Fitri means like the principle or the law of contradiction. It's built in. So we just like that, we don't have to prove it. It's a proper basic belief. That's what they call in philosophy, proper basic belief. Other words, you don't need proof. So if someone says, what's the proof math is right? You don't see, the guy's already out, right? 1 + 1 = 2, what's your proof? Khalas, he's not aqid anymore, this guy. He's already out the conversation. No one's going to ask that. So we're going to say it's a proper basic belief. It doesn't require evidence. That means axiomatic. Now, of course, the atheist will be like, I don't believe that. So you have to show him the study that shows this. That's actually where it's innate. But obviously, you will notice something that even if you present the study, they will disagree with the study. So we're going to come back to that later. When you bring science, they don't accept it. You bring rational argument, doesn't agree. Quran, I don't believe. So we're going to say, well, where are we going with this? So I'm going to say later that they have a lot of fallacies they fall into. But you can use it this way. Dalil Fitr doesn't need proof. I'm going to ask you why you don't believe in that. Okay, another way of presenting it is using it as an analogy. Qiyas al-awla. And we talked about this throughout the lessons. We have to remind ourselves. Qiyas al-awla is called the analogy of preponderance. And it's one of the tools in Aqidah Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Remember, when it comes to Aqidah, Qiyas, we don't use Qiyas like other places. Fiqh, you can use Qiyas. Aqidah, the ulama say Qiyas, you use only Qiyas al-awla. Why? Because Allah, there's no Qiyas. فَلَا تَدْرِبُوا لِلَّهِ أَمْثَالٍ. You don't make Qiyas with Allah's creation. Qiyas al-awla is a particular type of Qiyas. So how do we do it? You ask the atheist, just like math, causality, the law of identity, are all a priori, axiomatic, first principles. Means, does anybody ask you, prove to me cause and effect is real? It's fitri. So we tell them, just like math, cause and effect, the law of identity, for example, are all axiomatic, a priori, means no evidence needed. Then the belief in Allah is like that, min babil awla, more deservingly. If math makes sense intuitively, 1 + 1 = 2, everyone knows the triangle has 3 sides, no one needs to be proven this, then belief in Allah is more innate, min babil awla, more deservingly to be accepted. That's how you can, that's one way of using it. Because if someone tells you, I agree, you do, math is universal, math is considered absolutely correct, it's justifiable to believe in math without having proof, okay? Then do you think Allah, the creator of us and math, is not innate? How can you, for example, root logic in anything, the fact that Allah gave us aql that shows logic is real? The atheists will say, I believe the fundamental logical principles are innate, but Allah isn't. So how do you root your logic? Another way to look at it, language. Language is a powerful one. And the atheists, they can't say much because the big people behind them got stuck. Research it when you have time. Noam Chomsky, Theory of Language. Noam Chomsky, the famous political activist or critic of America, and then one of the biggest linguists we have, he has a book on the source of language. It's a mystery. And we got to tell him, we know why? Because Allah gave it to us. Ibn Taymiyyah said, it's fitri. What do you think? How is it possible a child who has limited impetus and limited stimuli knows grammar? How does he know sit down means sit down, and get up means get up, and do this one is a command or a question? How? So it's an absolute mystery. We tell them language is fitri. If language is innate, and you don't have to explain this, Allah who gave us language, min babil awla. Babil awla means qiyas awla, you're going upwards. So why now, remember, atheists might say, I don't believe in causality. Okay, he's already majnoon then. When he said that, he said, Assalamu alaikum. Right? This is what I was hoping you're going to say. Because someone they're going to say cause and effect is not even proven. So when you hear someone talk like that, you say, okay, take care of yourself, that this thing is finished. Because now he's going, as we'll see, he's fallen into a fallacy. Another way of using it, ask and discuss about the source of the universality of God's belief. So this way you're going to use what's called sabr wa taqseem. Sabr wa taqseem is examination and classification. So what do? Now that we know scientifically we all believe, or everyone's born believing in a creator, this is what science is saying, we're going to ask a question about the source. Why is it everybody universally believes in God? Okay, so we're going to give options. Option 1, it's all coincidence. Option 2, it's not true. But it can be because science is saying that. Option 3, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put it in us. Option 4, you tell me. So you tell them, okay, the source of it. So what happens, often when you ask them, they get stuck. So we're going to say scientifically, we know all children are born believing in a creator. Now I'm going to ask, let's talk about the source. We have options. Option 1 is coincidence. Every child everywhere in the world suddenly, coincidentally believes God exists or there's a greater being. Doesn't sound very logical, right? Number 2, it doesn't. It's not true. But then we tell them science, we tell the atheists, look, there's 2 studies, Oxford University, peer-reviewed, right? Non-Muslim, we didn't make this. So what are you going to do there? Okay, how about 3rd? Allah put in us. Yeah, God put in everyone. That's a logical option. Or 4, you tell me. So when you use the dalil fitr this way, it's very hard for the atheists to run from it. What they might do is just say, I don't agree with you. But the question we're going to see later is why? Why not? Right? We have to ask the question. We need answers. We don't need evading the question. Why? Why is it universal? Why do you think everyone believes in it? So before they used to say everyone believes in God's existence because they've been brainwashed by their parents. Well, sorry, man. Right? In Japan, places they're not very religious over there, and they still believe that. Right? Maybe it works in America, but it's not going to work when the children are from Japan, right? So we tell them, see, now you have a big problem. So this is important. And when you bring science, you bring logic, you bring Quran or Sunnah, and you tell them, okay, you pick, you show me what we're going to do with all this. Okay, that's the first one. The best evidence is this one. Dalil Fitrah, the best evidence you got. But let's say someone says, I'm not convinced. Okay, second evidence, the cosmological argument. So chapter 52, verse 35, Surah Tur, ayah 35. So you can present the cosmological argument that everything that begins to exist must have a creator. Everything that is caused begins to exist must have something that caused it. Right? So the universe began to exist according to science, therefore it must have a creator. So it's in the Quran, it's textual and it's logical. Logical because it's based on cause and effect. Textual, chapter 52, verse 35. This is the second strongest argument you can present because this argument was used at the time of the Sahaba. Jubair Mut'im radhiyallahu anhu, Bukhari, how did he become Muslim? When he heard Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam reading these ayat in Salat al-Maghrib, and he said, my heart almost flew out of my chest. وَوَقَرَ الْإِيمَانُ فِي قَلْبِي. Iman fell into my heart that day. So it's a tried and proven argument. Now the atheist, of course, he might try to poke holes in it. We discussed that later, how to respond. But how to use the cosmological argument? Well, you can use it different ways. Because someone will say, I agree with you. Everything that began to exist has to have a producer or maker. But he's going to tell you, or she might say, I don't believe it's Allah. So how do we get from the universe began to exist to Allah made the universe? We're going to use Qiyas al-Awla again, the analogy of preponderance. And how do you do that? Well, simple. Whoever made the universe had to make us, right? Because we're in the universe. And whoever made the universe has qualities more perfect than us. Mankind have certain qualities which are perfect for us and are considered excellent qualities and perfect qualities like speech, intellect, will. Right? These are called qualities every human being has and we actually prefer. So we're going to say then whoever made the universe must have better speech than ours, must be more alive than we are, must be more capable than we are, Qiyas al-Awla. And Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, he mentioned that principle, that anything that human beings they have of perfect attributes, that Allah has it min babil awla, more deservingly. It's the easiest argument. The atheists, what happens to them? We say we speak, right? We think, we will. And then they say, who made us? The universe. But the universe doesn't think. It doesn't speak, it doesn't will. How does something lesser make something greater? Worse than that, natural selection made us. The one that doesn't have can't give. See how bad they are? They're going to say natural selection. Does it think? Does it have a mind? Does it have will? Has wisdom? No. Then, sorry, put it aside. So this is the easiest way to get there. How did I get my life? From the one who is Al-Hayy, Al-Qayyum, La Yamut. We got our life from the one who's all living. And look at the secret, brothers. Scholars, they say, why do we devote our life to Allah? The ulama in the past, they said, the one who gave you life deserves you give him your whole life. Allah. This is too deep. The one who gave you your life, he deserves to give you your whole life. But the one who didn't give you life doesn't deserve any part of that. That's the depth of the deen. That argument is so deep because we don't get it. You worship anyone else, he didn't give you life. Allah says, you worship things which are dead, not alive. These things are created, they don't create. Allah created you, He gave you life. Right? But they're going to come and say that we're created by something that doesn't have life. Okay, I'm sorry, man, that doesn't make any sense. Because I want to figure out the source of the ontology of my qualities. Think about it, right? If you ask a human being now, were you so smart? Right? So the one everyone who has knowledge, one more knowledgeable. Makes sense, right? You're so smart, Allah created you, Allah gave you intelligence. Someone's going to come and say, I'm so smart, I don't believe in Allah. That means you don't believe in intelligence. It's done, because you can't even source it. See the atheists, where the trouble they're in? So that's Qiyas al-Awla, powerful, simple, Salafi argument. Because we don't want to fall into the mistake of the Asha'ira. Asha'ira, they made the mistake. They did Qiyas al-Shahid al-Ghaib. You have to know this. That's why we don't use the contingency argument. That's why we don't use the other arguments. They're wrong. They get you that far, then they fall down. Because what do? They say, okay, whoever made the universe, they do a Qiyas, analogy between that which is present and that which is absent. It's a mistake. So for example, Allah has the irada because I have irada. No, that's not how you say it. I have irada and the one who gave it to me has more deservingly perfect irada. You have to go up like that. And the reason this is important because if you do qiyas, what's the present, analogy between present and absent, you fall into what? Tashbih. And all the Ash'ari, they agree. That's one of the weakest arguments. But unfortunately, their entire aqidah is based on argument. Every one of them, Mu'tazila, wa Ash'ira, wa Maturidiyya, and the Ahl Kalam, Mutafalsifa, all of them have the same mistake. And who said it? Themselves. They say we made a mistake in that. So what you're going to do is you're going to ask the person a question. You're smart, right? You're so smart, you're coming with these arguments, right? Right? So who gave you intelligence? He's going to say, I'm just like that. So if he doesn't give you a source that can... So that's why we're going to say, look, whoever gave us what we have must have it more deservingly. Therefore, by natural elimination, eliminative reasoning, who's the one who created us? Whoever has those qualities. What do we call him? Allah. You call him whatever you want. Maybe you call him the creator. Other religions have different names. But who is it? Allah. The problem today, the atheists, where they try to get stuck, they say, I don't know Allah. Okay, don't worry about the name, worry about the qualities. Right? Allah just means the true God. Al-Ilah. Okay, the third argument we can present is the dalil, the signs, dalil of ayat. You can use miracles as proof of Allah's existence. And there is a strong argument. We talked about it. So how are some of the examples? Ayat of Allah are called miracles or signs. So there's two types of signs. Universal signs, sun, moon, stars, right? Natural laws, or what you call the laws of nature, or laws of the universe. You can use those, or you can use revelatory signs, i.e. proofs of prophethood. These two are very strong. Use universal signs. Look at the mountain. Look at the earth. Look at the rotation of the earth. Look at the distance between the earth and the sun. All those kind of signs, right? Allah tells us to travel. Okay, look at the earth, see. Universal signs, or you can use revelatory signs, signs of revelation, i.e. proofs of prophethood. Very strong argument. And if you guys remember, we presented some examples, but you have to present it correctly. So we said before, how do you prove using proofs of prophethood? Simple. The Prophet Muhammad came with a miracle. He is not capable of doing that himself. He came with a miracle. No creation can do it. So therefore, who gave him that miracle? The one who created creation, Allah. Example, Nabi ﷺ had water coming through his fingers. Right? That's one of his miracles. Can human beings or any creation, jinn, animals, malaika, anyone, can they bring water to their fingers? Impossible. So the one who is doing that, where did he get that from? The one who created everything, including us, he gave it to us. I gave it to him. That's a miracle. And therefore the miracle proves. When Musa came to Fir'aun with the staff and it became a snake, Fir'aun knew what happened there. What was he seeing? He's seeing a staff moving like a snake. Can a stick turn to snake? No. So there he knew it. The one who gave it to him must be the creator. So you can use all of that. The problem may be the atheists don't agree with the signs because they don't believe miracles happen. That's not true, right? But this is what they're going to try to do. And they may also dispute the miracles by saying they don't believe in akhbar, narrations. Right? So we're going to tell them, okay, that's not a problem, because we're going to come to later that you have other beliefs you hold which are more problematic and more deserving for you not to believe in if you don't believe in these. Means if you don't believe in the signs of the Prophet, you shouldn't believe in anything else you believe in. We're going to come to that. So these are some of the arguments we presented through our classes here. There are more, but these are the strongest ones, you could say, and the most authentic, and in many ways the most easiest to remember. Right? Fitrah, cosmological argument, proofs of prophethood, easy to remember. The problem is sometimes when you're discussing people, you might forget what to say or what to present. So try to remember what the evidences are, how to present the case, and the one who's sincere is going to accept it. The one who's not, then we're going to come to later, the case somebody's arrogant or becoming like belligerent, we say, okay, don't worry, we have something for you too. Right? So this is important, because when you're talking to people, you have to know who you're talking to. Sometimes we debate with people. You don't debate with everybody. Okay, now that we know Allah exists, these are proofs. Second thing we have to present, and we have to say quickly, how do you know Allah is one? Right? Islam monotheism. Why is he not 2, 3, 4? So obviously, most people know Allah is one, because it only makes sense. But how do we prove it? We're going to present 3 arguments. 3 quick arguments. And it's important because we as Muslims take Tawheed as foundation, right? It's our bread and butter of our life, right? Tawheed. If you ask a non-Muslim, you say, why? Why can't God be 2? And some Muslims, they thought about it, and the ulama thought about it. The argument they presented is called Dalil al-Tamanu', the argument from exclusion. If you want the details of that argument, you can go to Sharh al-Tahawiyya, Ibn Abi Izz al-Hanafi, page 88 of the English, right? Sharh al-Tahawiyya is in English, Ibn Abi Izz al-Hanafi. If you go to page 88, it's there. Also, Ibn Taymiyyah in Dar al-Ta'awud al-Aql wal-Naql, he also mentions it in good detail. To summarize it, it's impossible for there to be 2 all-powerful, all-capable, present gods, because it's going to lead to fighting. Right? And what's the proof of that? Textually, chapter 23, Surah Mu'minun, ayah 92. Okay, Allah told us. So see how you use the Quran, use Quran and logic, they go together, right? So chapter 23, verse 92. Allah says there can't be other gods besides Allah, because if there were, what's going to happen? Right? ذهب كل إله لما خلق. Every God will take what he created. وَلَعَلَى بَعْضُهُمْ بَعْضٍ. They're going to start fighting. Just like in the Hindu books, you find the stories like that, fighting. Okay, so how does a logical argument work? Allah said they're going to fight. Because two all-powerful, all-willing, all-capable gods are not going to share a universe, one kingdom, right? So what is the argument with it? Is that if there was two or more, we're going to have outcomes. The will in the universe is only one. The sun comes, then the moon comes, and it goes in orbit. There's no such thing, sun coming, moon disappearing, child born, not born. So the universe is stable, right? So the ulama say then what that would mean is that whoever is in the charge of the universe has one will, therefore there's one God. One will, one set of laws, one system, one God. Done. If there's two, we're going to have fighting, we're going to have disorder, and we're going to have things that we don't see. For example, imagine a child is born, then disappears, is dead, and then reborn, and ever happened before? No. So what does that mean? One will, one system, one qadr, one taqdeer, one mudabbir. That's it. Allah exists. Allah is one. And Ibn Taymiyyah then argues that what if they shared? Some people say, how about they can't make a deal? Anyone who needs to make a deal is not Al-Qahar, is not all-powerful. Anyone who has to make a deal is not a God. It's not business here. Right? God doesn't have... So Ibn Taymiyyah said, if someone were to say, how about if they just made a deal, so he said, the universe is only one? There's going to have to be two natural wills, two universes, and two wills. There's only one will, one universe, therefore one God. That's the argument called the argument of exclusion. It's a good argument, simple, clear. If you want more, go to that book. Also chapter 23, verse 92. But someone may say, can we use another argument? Yes. For lay people, just use the argument, qiyas al-awla, use analogy of preponderance. At-Turtushi, rahimahullah Maliki, writes in his book, Siraj al-Muluk, page 47 to 48, that in the world we have one king for one kingdom, right? Dunya, how does it work? One king, one kingdom. One CEO, business. One president for a country. One husband in charge of the family. So if it works in dunya, he said, Bab al-Awla, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Malik al-Mulk. So more deservingly, there's one king for the whole universe. Right? There's no two kings in one country, right? There's two sheriffs in town? I don't think so. Right? So we tell them, okay, if in dunya it works, right? Because one system, one leader, one charge, one rules. Therefore, if you aggregate, it has to be the whole universe should have one God, khalas. That's a simple one, right? Just ask him, how many CEOs? Just one. How many presidents? Just one. So how many universe? One. And the proof for this logic is so simple, right? Story of Yusuf alayhi salam in the jail. Right? Prophet Yusuf goes in jail, two young men in jail. What's the first thing he tells them? Right, what's better, two gods or one all irresistible God? They didn't say anything because they already know he's right. Simple, right? They come on. Yusuf alayhi salam, perfect. The best example of da'wah. He's in the jail, he asked them which one was better. Because they're mushrikeen, he's a prophet. Two or one, which is better? One, khalas. That's it. Next question from there. But if today someone were to ask you, that's how you're going to present it. Alhamdulillah, the fitrah tells us one God. If you ask the average person, like it doesn't make sense too. Okay, good. Let's keep going. The atheist says zero. Just imagine how bad it is, right? He's saying no gods. You say one God, the other guy's saying 3,000 gods, or 360 million, whatever the Hindus say. All of these show you again the pureness of Islam. Because everything we present is going to be coming from where? Our epistemology. We have Quran, Hadith, logic, and scientific evidence. We never miss those. Let's talk about now the problems of atheism. Now that we know about our view, what's wrong with their view? Well, there's so many things wrong with them, right? But we have to summarize it by looking at the following things. Firstly, their arguments. The arguments of atheists, we said, are two types, and we're going to go over them one by one. First, the atheists present what's called logical arguments. Logical arguments. What are those arguments? Those are the arguments they try to use to show Allah's attributes are contradictory. Remember we said they try to use arguments to say that Allah can't be all merciful, all good, and all powerful. So what they do, they try to create questions, scenarios, examples where Allah's attributes become conflicting. What are those called? Logical arguments. I mean, they're not logical because the conclusion is not logical. But what they try to say is that, okay, you believe in Allah, right? So here's why Allah can't exist, and they try to create a confusion about Allah's attributes. What is the problem with those arguments? So anytime it's a logical argument, you don't have to remember the examples. Just remember the two fallacies. All of them fall into two fallacies, every single one. This is an easy way to remember. Don't worry about the argument, worry about the mechanism. He can tell you he can make one from his own argument. As long as he falls into these two fallacies, it's game over. First fallacy. All of their arguments are making tashbihul khaliq bil makhluq. All of their arguments fall into the fallacy of resembling Allah to His creation. You have to understand the asl. Ibn Qayyim says the asl, or the haqiqatu shirk, the essence of shirk, tashbihul khaliq bil makhluq. Anytime someone makes a resemblance between the creator and the creation. So every time they say logical arguments, they always assume they're talking about us. We're creation, that's the creator. What's true for us, not always true for him. Right? What we do, Allah doesn't do. Allah's perfect. But they always try to make a scenario as if Allah is like us. So you have to remember that fallacy is very common. In fact, you could say it's the most common fallacy of all the arguments. Tashbihul khaliq bil makhluq. You cannot escape it. And just for our reminder, atheists are mushrikun, right? Yeah, so they are mushrikun. They believe Allah doesn't exist, so they gave Allah's attributes to who? To the creation. Example, natural selection, universe, you name it. Those are God-like figures. They are. So the ulama say whoever denies Allah is mushrik bi babil lawazim. If you deny Allah exists, you took out His attributes in existence. Who are you going to give the attributes to? So you have to something else. So the atheist, I don't believe in God, then listen to him to natural selection, sounds like God to me. Listen to him about the universe, sounds like Big Bang, sounds like math, sounds like God. That's how they do. They deify the creation when they denied the creator. And that's the punishment of Allah for anyone who denies Him. He's going to become humiliated. Second fallacy. Atheists always imagine Allah has three attributes and they forget the others. So whenever you read the argument, Allah has three attributes. Why? Only three. He's all-powerful, all-good, all-knowing. That's it. So us as Muslims, we say, I'm sorry, I don't know what kind of discussion of Allah is that. Even Ash'ari will say 7. Come on, you said 3. Even Ash'ari will say 7. Where did you get 3 from? We say you missed all of Allah's attributes. Allah's attributes are infinite. So what's the problem with this? Who told them Allah has 3 attributes? They say, well, this is what comes in literature. No, I'm sorry. Don't talk out of ignorance. In our book, in our Aqidah, Allah has infinite attributes. And the ones you're missing are wisdom. That's the key one you always forget. So just pay attention. They say God's omnipotent, fancy word for all-powerful, omnibenevolent, fancy word for all-good, omniscient, fancy word for all-knowing, and He's also Rahman, Rahim, and Hakim, and Adil. What's going on here? What is these 3? So why am I saying this? When you make a strong man, you can knock it down easy, right? So let's talk about an example. Once they make God only have 3 attributes, they try to put these 3 against each other. They're always missing the other attributes. And also, why would you assume God's attributes are not harmonious? Why do they have to be conflicting? That's another fallacy. Why can't you believe in a God who has a holistic view? Why is all those attributes are going against each other? It's like asking him, do you have conflicting attributes? No, you don't. But you say God is all perfect. Yes, that's the key word, perfect. So if I as a human being don't do things like this, how could the Creator do it? So let's give an example. Atheists also like to give preference to one attribute over another. Right? So so God has 3 and they pick one over the other 2. Let's give an example. They say Allah's mercy should take precedence over His justice when it comes to the problem of hell. Remember we studied the problem of hell? What was the argument? Why is God put people in hellfire forever? What's the problem with that? God's all merciful. Yeah, and He's also all just. What's your problem? Why are you preferring mercy over justice? That's my question. See, you catch him there. That's how you get him right there. What are you trying to say? You're trying to say God's mercy has to overcome His justice. Why? He's both. So you see that? Okay, another example. They say God's love overcomes His wisdom when it comes to the divine hiddenness problem. That's another problem. They say, why God hidden to us? If He loved us, wouldn't He show ourselves? God's all wise. This world's a test. You don't know? See, the question he's asking is wrong. They're saying if God loves us, why would He hide us from ourselves? This is the dunya's a test. Allah's all wise. He wants you to come to Him voluntarily. Why are you hiding from Him? And also, God's not hidden. He's in the fitrah. Why are you not accepting that? So you see, He's coming from 2 places there. That problem is called divine hiddenness problem. We never talked about too much, but it's a weak argument. God, He will be showing Himself to His creation, even those who are not resistant. Meaning some kafir out there who's not ungrateful. Okay, let's just say there's a kafir out there who wants to know Allah, yet he couldn't find Allah. What kind of a scenario is that? First problem, isn't the belief in Allah fitri? Second problem, Allah is testing us, dunya's test. Third problem, from the wisdom of Allah, He lets you choose. He wants you to come to Him voluntarily, not forcefully. So we have a question. Why do you choose God's love over His mercy, or His love over His wisdom? No answer. I'm going to come to that later. When you ask questions like this, no answer, because they don't have. So another example, they say God's justice should overcome His wisdom in the problem of evil. Problem evil. What's the problem evil? Why is there evil in the world? Why Allah has taken life of animals and children? We say God is wise, He's also just, and He's also merciful. All three. Why do you think He has to be, why do you think in order for Him to be just, He has to have no wisdom? You see, they can't answer that. They can't. I'm going to get to it. There's no such answer for wise. They don't go there. That's why you have to play offense. I have a question for you. Why would you assume God has to do all that? Why can't He have all of them? And once He says it's possible, خلاص. قضي الأمر. إذا وجد احتمال بطل استدلال. That's where we're going to go. As soon as He says, yes, I'm sorry. قاعدة فقهية, whenever there's a possibility, you lost evidence. There's no evidence now. If it could be halal or haram, there's no argument to tell it's haram. Right? Well, if you're telling me it could be halal, it could be haram, okay, it could be both. Why are you telling me it's haram then? Just like someone today told you that, it could be mustahab or wajib. If it's both, and it's not clear to us, khalas, so why are you telling me it's wajib? You should say it's ikhtilaf. But the atheist, he knows this. When you ask questions like this, they're on the back foot. Their job often is to ask you questions, so get used to asking them questions. Especially, co-workers and people who think they're very clever, say, hey, I have a question for you. And he's going to look at you like, I don't know, right? So examples of logical arguments are many. We gave them in the class. Problem, evil, paradox arguments. All those arguments fall into the same two fallacies. To summarize, the fallacies are two. Either they resemble the Creator to the creation, or number two, they limit Allah's attributes to three, or number three, they choose one attribute over the other when they're not supposed to. They're supposed to harmonize God's attributes, but they prefer one over the other. If you remember these three fallacies, it doesn't matter what argument he brings. You just catch it from the asl. Because once it's a mughalata, once it's a fallacy, there's no argument. All you have to do is present the fallacy and say, I'm sorry, Allah is not like us. Allah subhanahu is perfect, He's not like us. Maybe we as human beings, we make mistakes like this when we prefer people forgiveness over justice. When we're weak, Allah is just and perfectly merciful. It's different than us. It's perfect. We're not. The atheist can't escape this because it's something that he has to accept. Also, we have to look at another example of that. Logical argument, when they say, who created God? We're going to come to that. That's like more emotional, actually. That's not really logical. Right? Anyone says who created God is already not forfeited the logic. Right? Okay, let's move now to the second category of arguments, which is the arguments which are evidential. What are those arguments? When they try to use science or the universe as proof that God doesn't exist. So you have to understand what they're going to do. They're going to bring Big Bang, evolution, right? You name it. Any type of paleoanthropology, any study to show that Quran is wrong, Allah doesn't exist. So what's the fallacies they fall into here? They fall into three fallacies here too. Three fallacies. And it's important to remember the fallacy. Don't remember what argument. You just remember the fallacy. You just ask him, what kind of argument is that? If he doesn't know which one, it says, okay, you're miskeen. You don't even know what argument you're making. Ask another. You ask him, what kind of argument is this? Logical, evidential, emotional? They look at you, I don't know. What are you arguing? That's another thing. You have to do that sometimes. Someone who's talking a lot, you just confuse him with istilahat. You tell him, how about this, how about that? And we're going to give you an example of that. Sometimes that works. You scare him away. So we think, who do you think I'm dealing with here? Because some people don't have black belts. You have to show them you have a black belt, right? Sometimes it works. But some people, what you do is ask him, was it evidential? Okay, I have a question then. So you remember from the argument. What are the example evidential arguments? So we said Big Bang, evolution, problem evil, the evidential version, divine hiddenness, it can also be made this way. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to remember the following fallacies. Number one, Ibn Jawzi, he writes in Sayyid al-Khatir, Captured Thoughts, page 700 English. Okay, you can get it. It's a very nice quote. Page 700, Captured Thoughts, Ibn Jawzi. He says, some people denied the Maker, and the Creator, because they were unable to sense Him. They neglected that He was manifested through His actions. That statement is very powerful. He tells us that ta'aleed, he gave it to us, sabab khilaf or sabab dalal here. Why they're gone? They can't see Allah, right? We can't see Him, but they forgot that you can see His actions. So instead of saying that Allah's actions are present, hence Allah exists, they looked at His action and denied the Creator. So what is the conclusion? If Allah exists, we know Him through His actions, because there's no actions without an actor. Actions need a doer. Atheists, they denied the actions have a doer. How? When they say there's no Creator, then who made all this? They don't like the word who. They say what and how. We're going to get to that. Why not who? Because they see a fi'il, بدون فاعل. We all study Arabic. فعل فاعل مفعول. This guy's saying there's a fi'il بدون فاعل. What is going on here? What's wrong with your grammar? That's what we're going to ask him. Is your grammar any good? Right? You believe in a subject, predicate with no subject? But what's interesting about this, how do you explain to them? So there's actions without a doer. Either you're going to believe that, or the atheist will say that the doer is not Allah, it's something else, like chance. See, these are their answers. Who made the universe? Well, the universe was made by chance, or nothing, or universe made it. Gravity, mathematics. Those are the options they give. Each one of them is illogical, impossible. You see that? So we're going to come back to this. Because they couldn't see Allah, they forgot about His actions. So they gave His actions to the other than His actor. Khalas. Ibn Jawzi highlights the real problem. So when they come and say, oh, Big Bang proves God doesn't exist. All you told me about how the bang happened, who made the Big Bang? I want to know who. And when they asked him the who, then they say crazy stuff like Stephen Hawking. It was gravity. MashaAllah. All his calculations got him to what? Nothing. Because he calculated everything, and when I was asked who, he said the gravity. Look at this. This is why the first fallacy. They can't see the fact that actions in the actor. They know that, but they try to deny it. If they accept it, they give bad answers. Second fallacy. They could not understand the wisdom of Allah's actions due to their limited intellect. So what they do, they denied Allah's actions have any wisdom, or they denied the actions altogether. So let's give the example, problem of evil, right? Why Allah takes the life of people or tests them with cancer? You're asking about ta'leel af'alillah, the very essence of the issue of qadr. Ibn Taymiyyah said, the essence, and Ta'iyya, he said the essence of the problems of qadr is trying to figure out the reason for Allah's actions. So the atheist can't get it. Why? Okay, here's what we're going to ask. We don't know why, right? This is what you're trying to say, we don't know. But Ibn Jawzi says again, same book, Sayyid al-Khatir, chapter top, page 700. He says, I think 702 around there. He says, we must surrender to His wisdom that governs our intellects, while intellects can govern His wisdom. This point again is very powerful. It's short words, but powerful. The atheist trying to judge Allah's af'al and His hikmah with their aql, forgetting that our aql is run by Allah's wisdom. You don't know why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave that child an early death, or what they call premature death. We're going to say decreed death. But you're trying to judge Allah's wisdom with your aql when it's too limited, when you're supposed to remember Allah's wisdom governs your aql. Allah has a wisdom, you can't deny it. But why do you think you could comprehend it? The proof for this, you want more? Story of Musa and Khidr. Khidr is doing everything, وَمَا فَعَلْتُهُ عَنْ أَمْرِي. He's doing by Allah's command. So what does he do? He takes the life of the boy, pokes a hole in the ship. Musa, who's a prophet, couldn't understand it. And later when he gets the answer, he understands. But look at that. Human beings can't understand each other's actions in detail. What about when it's revelation? So Khidr got revelation, is doing things. Musa, he didn't know. Today the answer is going to come. Why? Asking why doesn't mean there isn't. We're going to get to it. Just because you don't know doesn't mean you can't. But where's the problem? He tries to judge Allah's wisdom with his aql. When he couldn't, he denied the wisdom. When he should actually be denying his aql. That's what he's supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be saying, Astaghfirullah, I'm miskeen. Ibn Taymiyyah gives a good example. Shaykh al-Islam says, it's like mathematics or medicine. A doctor doing medicine or a mathematician doing mathematics, and an ignorant layperson doesn't understand what he's doing, doesn't deny that that person is doing something with wisdom. My inability to understand the mathematics of the calculus teacher doesn't mean the calculus has no meaning. Ibn Taymiyyah says, example, when a doctor is giving you a diagnosis, your ignorant self who doesn't understand what he's doing doesn't mean he's not doing something. Ibn Taymiyyah says, Allah's wisdom is far beyond that. It was with me, and think about it. In the dunya, do we do that? Right? The doctor gives you a prescription, right? Allah gave you a prescription too. You didn't take his, but you took his. See, tanaqud? You took the prescription doctor. You don't know what he did. How do you know it works? I don't know. So why you listen to him? Because he knows better. Allah doesn't know better than. So these are arguments awam, but they work. They're very strong because the guy is going to say, I don't know any better. But here's the problem. They couldn't understand the wisdom. So what does that tell us now? When they tell you about evolution, when they tell you about Big Bang, evidential problem, evil, all they're going to be telling you about Allah's actions, the wisdom, or Allah's actions, who did it. We're going to come back to it. Third fallacy, they confuse the mechanism for the agent. This is the most important one of them. Because if you remember this one, you can answer a lot of them. If not most, all of them. Atheists confuse different types of causation. There are different types of causes, 4 causes. But what is one of the types? Physical cause. So what's this table made of? We say plastic. What kind of cause is that? Physical, material cause. What is it made of? A next question from the cause, who made the table? Atheists, they explain the what, the how, in place of the who. They say, if I explain what the table is made of, I've explained who made the table. We're going to tell them, I'm asking you about agency, not mechanism. Who started evolution, not how evolution works. When they get stuck, they tell you a long story about the imaginary universal common ancestor, which no one ever has seen before, can never be seen before, cannot be replicated scientifically. Yet that's aql, right? MashaAllah, that's science. See guys, you gotta remember, no one ever seen it, it's impossible to see it, they tried to replicate it, it failed, yet it still exists. So then we're gonna say, so the Big Bang happened how? We don't know. Okay, if you don't know, like even telling me how doesn't work. I'm asking you who, you're telling me how. I'm gonna come back to that. So mechanism versus agent, don't fall for that. Big Bang tells us nothing about who made it, how it started. All it tells us about what they imagined. And what's even more funny, even the how they don't know. It's a masakin, guys. Their whole life they're spending finding out the how, and they died trying to find out the how. They didn't even know the who. What's the point of that? For example, Stephen Hawking couldn't solve it. Still, the problem of time. He couldn't solve time in his equations. It's too difficult. So what's the point of studying something? And if you don't know how we came into existence or who brought it into existence, then you will definitely won't know how it came into existence, and you don't know where we're going after that. So their life is really pathetic, right? The whole life was trying to find out how. Why does it matter? It shouldn't be who, because that's the whole point of life, right? We're supposed to thank somebody. He's telling you how it happened. Who do you think? I have a question with your life. Okay, last one now. Emotional arguments. These are the easiest to solve because they're not arguments that are rational or scientific. They present it, deceive the people. So what do you have to do? They're emotional. So whatever is emotional, don't play into it. Free will problem. We talked about that. Free will, right? Everyone has a free will, and we also have decree. We have to be compatibilist. If someone says, I don't believe in God because of that, I tell them this guy, you already know this guy's emotional. Why? Because what is the argument? What does that even mean? Not believing in Allah doesn't change the fact that some things are decreed and some things are free will choice. So he's emotional. He's like, I don't understand how. What does that have to do with what you have to do? It's like saying, I don't know why the speed limit is 50 kilometers. I can't live my life. So I don't live like that. Right? Imagine the person's whole life trying to find out why it's 50, not 60. Khalas, you're going to waste your life, and you're still going to get caught by the police. Doesn't matter. It's still going to catch you if you don't believe that. This is the problem today. He's worrying about this. So people get stuck in Qaadir. It's a shaitan's plot. Another one, problem of hell. Someone's worried about hell. What, is it just or not? Absolutely just. All actions of Allah are just. The question is, why are you worried? Unless you're going to hell, you should not be worried. You don't even believe in it. You shouldn't be worried. You see, that's the problem. When someone is scared of something, or he thinks it's not just, is because he's probably implicating himself. Yeah? He probably did something. It's like a criminal asking how many years you get in jail for this. What do you do to ask that question? Right? No one asks for a lawyer unless he's in trouble in his case. So the person who's asking you this, you must be already guilty. Become mu'min, you don't have to worry. And these are important, it's emotional, so you have to play that emotional game. Another one, they claim that religion causes violence. Emotional, no proof. Backward society, religion causes backward society. Emotional, no argument. Who created God? Emotional, it's not scientific. If someone says, what's the proof? What's the answer to that question? It's an infinite regress question, right? It's impossible for there to be an infinite regress of dependent causative agents. In other words, you can't have a cause that depends on a cause, each one depends on another, until we get to nowhere. So therefore, all causes end at Allah. Chapter 53, Surah Najm, verse 42. Right? وَأَنَّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ مُنْتَهَى. Everything ends up with Allah. That's it. So if they tell them, well, who created Allah? First of all, that question is invalid. The second, this is why it's invalid. Third, they say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Right? That's from shaitan. So emotional arguments are easiest because most of us will know how to deal with it. But now that we understand that evidential arguments have fallacies, so too does logical. We're left now with the next topic, which is that why is atheism wrong? Because they fall into contradictions. Dr. Abdul Suwaidi, he mentions at least 8 different contradictions the atheists fall into. 8. And we know the sign of misguidance is tanaqud, aslan, that's it. Anything that has contradictions is 100% batil, absolute falsehood. And therefore we should know, and it's very powerful, but Shaykh Sulayman Taymiyyah said this, anyone who opposes the Quran and Sunnah, Allah will test him and trial him with contradiction. He has to, he has no choice. He has to. That's the Sunnah of Allah. So atheists, they're trying to come from a position of rationality, but they have up to 8 or more contradictions. Let's give some examples to show you, if you talk to an atheist and you're trying to guide him, you also show them that the problem with atheism is that they also confirm this. Example number 1, the universe, they say, is created itself from nothing. At the same time, they believe nothing existed before the creation. Okay, that's a circular argument. The universe created itself from nothing, and nothing existed before the creation. It's the problem. Nothing. If the universe, nothing created the universe, nothing from nothing comes, right? From nothing comes nothing. So this is a fallacy, because if you said it came from nothing, then nothing should be here. The question is, why something rather than nothing, right? The very famous statement, right? Leibniz asked, why something rather than nothing? So us as Muslims say that's a contradiction. It's impossible to have nothing create something. But you said that before the universe there was nothing, then it came to something. How did nothing create something when nothing existed before and the creation means there was something? So Lawrence Krauss, he knew this, so he changed the word nothing to mean something. Obviously, he got caught for that, but that was his way out of it. He tried to say there was something before nothing, but he called it nothing. Another way of thinking about it is, if the universe came out of nowhere, then that means it didn't exist except that something existed before it came into being. Whatever that thing is, that's the question, that's the bahth. That's the mabhath. Who is it? What is it? Whatever you believe made the universe, not nothing. So we also can ask them that it's impossible in Islam, so remember we said it's impossible to attribute action to nothing. Shaykh Sulayman ibn Qayyim said, nothing is not a reason for or a reason, right, due to for anything. Nothing doesn't mean anything. So Adam is not evidence. That's the first contradiction. Number two, the universe does not need a cause. When you ask them who made the universe, they said he made it, it's always there. Then when you ask them, we tell them God exists, they say God needs a cause. Okay, so for example, Richard Dawkins, he asked the question foolishly, who made God? Okay, and we ask you who made the universe. He says, when you ask them, because you get angry, why are you asking, why are you saying who? Well, you're the one saying who all the time. You say who made God, who made the universe? So they don't like the who question, but they believe that universe was just a brute fact. It always existed. Okay, then why can't God always exist? So see guys, it's important. When it comes to Allah, who made Allah? How about science? How about the Big Bang? They don't want, no, you can't ask that. Well, you can ask about Allah, right? Does that look like somebody sincere? Does that look like somebody logical? So why I'm saying this is because if you ask who made Allah, it's illogical. The creator can't be created. But if I ask you who created the creation, that's logical. See, we're logical, not them. If I told you who baked the bread, I can say that. Who baked the baker? You can't say that. So he's telling you who baked the baker, and you ask him who baked the bread. He's asking, don't ask me who made the bread. Why are you asking who made the baker then? It's funny because they're trying to hide. This is showing you they're not sincere. But also what's problematic about that is that if someone has this contradiction, then you can already tell that they're not being sincere, they're contradictory. Number three, there is no evidence. They claim there's no evidence for empirical science, or there's no empirical evidence for God's existence from empirical science. At the same time, this claim that they're making has no evidence from empirical science. Self-defeating. So they say there's no proof for God exists scientifically, and his belief, the statement he just made, is not scientific either. And what's the proof of that? Your statement, your opinion is not scientific either. It's value judgment, subjective. So he'll say there's no scientific proof for God's existence. Okay, that statement itself, is it scientific? No, so you believe in non-scientific things. Yes, self-defeating. So this is what the ulama used to before. This aql person will say that, right? So if you have judgments outside of science, then why can't we have other beliefs that are unscientific? The atheist always assumes everything they do is scientific. It's a lie. I'm going to come to it. They invalidate science. Even science, they violate it. I'm going to get to it. Fourth contradiction. They say there's no objective morality. According to them, there's no such thing. And that's the correct view according to them. They have to say that. If they're real atheists, they have to believe no objective morality. Like Richard Dawkins says clearly, there's nothing, no good, no evil, just pitiless indifference. See, he's open. Everyone else is hiding. Right? They have to. The human rights, and no, you don't believe that. But at the same time, what are they going to tell you? Religion is evil. How can religion be evil? There's no good or bad. There's no good or evil. They say the problem of evil, there is no evil. Right? That's the element, right? You say problem of evil. What evil? Doesn't exist according to you. They say according to you. According to me, I have the answer. If you're going to take my aqidah, take the full package. Why are you taking parts of it? So what they do is I'm working with your belief. Okay, khalas, I also have a theodicy. Why'd you hide that part? So you see, brothers, this is how you talk about it. They don't have it. At least back in the day, they were honest. Bertrand Russell, right, Richard Dawkins today, and others. Right, they actually believe there's no objective evil and good. Khalas, then don't make objective statements. The atheists, all their arguments about religious evil, poisons everything, let's fight them. Okay, that's a contradiction. Number 6, they say religion calls for violence. Atheists, in reality, are those most frequently calling for violence. Examples, go to the book End of Faith by Sam Harris. Or the book I cited, Body Count. Right? Who killed more people in wars, non-religious battles? Okay, Sam Harris calls for nuking the Muslims. I thought the atheists were not. I thought you guys were peaceful people. Islam causes violence. And we don't even call for that stuff like that. Us as Muslims, how do we explain the people who call for violence, unjust violence? We call them khawarij, extremists. But what they try to do is say that religion innately is violent. Yeah, who causes most violence? Them. Go on to research it. Who agree with the war in Iraq, 2003? Atheists. They actually were supporting it. Sam Harris, I'm openly supporting the war in Iraq. Okay, look at the record of these people. So we have to remember that, because when someone says religion is evil, tell them, well, what are you evil? Right? So we have to call all your men. Which method are you in? If you say I'm atheist, okay, these are your men. You have to know this, because what they're trying to do, they want to skew it away from that reality. Number 7, they say religion goes against scientific theories and contradicts the scientific research. At the same time, atheists are the people who most frequently fight scientific theories. I'm going to show that in a second. But they are. Atheists are not very scientific. And if they are, they fight science. Where does it go with their beliefs? You want an example? Go to the book Science Delusion by Sheldrake. Okay, this book is very important. Dr. Abdul cites this. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake. This is his name. The Science Delusion. He's a scientist, guys. Royal Science Society of UK. They kicked him out of academia since 2012. Because when he wrote this book, and of course he argued that we're not being very scientific about science, they told him, get lost from here, right? He never got a job since, guys. Imagine, that's how they deal with one of them. He's a scientist. Royal Society. He's not an unknown, white guy too. And he argued, we're not being scientific. We say statements and axioms which are not scientific. Give you an example. What's the first law of thermodynamics? Energy cannot be created or destroyed. That statement, first of all, is absolute corruption of Aqidah. Energy can be destroyed or made, but you said the Big Bang. See, guys, Wallahi al-Azim, imagine. That's a qaida kulliyah. It cannot be broken. The universe energy cannot be truly created or destroyed, yet they say there's a Big Bang. كيف يعني? Number 2, the second law of thermodynamics, entropy. Problem? Big Bang. Because entropy is supposed to increase over time. What's going on here? 2 of the kulliyat, their aqidah go with. Then they're going to tell you, I have proof. What proof you have? It's us today as Muslims, if you come and say Quran is perfect, and then at the same time you say Quran has mistakes. See, that is the kafir according to us. You're out. Them, they say, shh, don't say anything. Another example, energy can be created or destroyed. What's wrong with that? How much of the world, universe do we know? We don't know about black matter and dark energy. Dark matter and dark energy. We still don't know. That's most of the universe. We can't account for most of the universe energy. Yet we made a claim this big. This is another example they say, right, from these things, that everything's material. And we find out it's not. So he mentioned 10 different problems of science, 10 contradictions. They kicked them out of academia. The book is there, PDF, do Google it. Science Delusion. Fantastic. He shows you, look, these guys are supposed to be scientific. So when you think about it, brother sister, when someone comes and says the Big Bang, just think, how about entropy? He's looking around, you're like, you're right. There's no such thing as tarjih or jam'a. They don't have those rules. So what do? They do what's called an aqidah, tahakkum wa tashahi. You take what you like and you reject what you don't. This is a sign of someone misguided. Tahakkum means, yes, you're right, but I don't care. I like this view, I'm taking this. Tashahi, what I like, I take. In Aqidah, that's considered absolute batil. You're no longer academic, you're a misguided person. So for example, you have choices. Either Big Bang is right, or the second law of thermodynamics, the first law of thermodynamics is right. What do? Big Bang is right, those two must be, keep quiet, forget about it. That's tahakkum. Why do you choose one over the other? Why are you falsely, arbitrarily choosing? Except you have a hawa you follow. And then he's going to come and say, I found something in the Quran. What are you talking about? Who do you think you're talking to? Brothers and sisters, Google it. This is in the literature. These are the biggest debates right now on the ground. They know, they hide. So this guy wrote a whole book. So we tell them, you think we're not scientific? We're very scientific, but unfortunately you're not. Right? Another one, number 8. The belief in God is irrational. This is what they say. Or it lacks evidence. Or they say it's improbable. Okay? Atheists, at the same time, believe in illogical, irrational, unscientific beliefs. So they say that religion is irrational, improbable, lacks evidence, while in the same breath believing in things which are irrational, it lacks evidence and is improbable. Let's give an example. Richard Dawkins, in a famous interview, when they asked him about who made the universe, he said that he believed in the belief called panspermia. Panspermia is the belief that life existed throughout the universe and is distributed by space, dust, asteroids, comets, and celestial bodies. In other words, some kind of advanced creation, aka aliens, have put us here. He said that's possible. MashaAllah. Allah is not possible. Aliens made us. This possible. That's one. Number 2, his friend over there, Lawrence Krauss, his student, said the universe came from nothing. That's logical, but Allah is not logical. Number 3, Stephen Hawking, their companion, he said that the universe came to existence due to gravity. Okay, circular reasoning. That's logical, but not, right? The God's existence, not. Or 4, they evade the question altogether. These people are supposed to be aqil, and they believe those things. They also believe in things they can't see and can't scientific test. So when they say science is irrational and panspermia isn't, see, they think they don't know this stuff. This is what we believe, right? Aliens, space dust, sci-fi movie, right? Allah is too much to be possible. Why? It's tahakkum. You don't believe in Allah aslan, so you're never going to allow him to be there. As one of them said, we don't want to give God a foot in the door. At least that guy's open about it, right? That's what they believe. So science can never. So guys, remember, when they say they're rational, they say, okay, let's talk about it. You believe in these things? Why are those options rational and God isn't? And here's the next part now. We're going to talk about fallacies. To finish, we have 2 more things we're going to talk about, 2 major headings, and we're going to finish. Now that we see the contradictions, we can also point out the fallacies of atheism. And there's so many, right? 2 minutes to count, so I apologize, brothers. These are just some of them. So we said that already each argument has a fallacy, but they have general fallacies too. Let's give some of them. The fallacy of reification. This is the most common one. Reification fallacy means when they take something which is abstract concept, like math, laws of nature, these are all abstract, right? They're all dhihni. They believe that they exist in real life. Like, imagine math is a real person. He's not, right? So you cannot attribute an action to an imaginary idea. This is called a fallacy of reification. R-E-I-F-I-C-A-T-I-O-N. R-E-I-F-I-C-A-T-I-O-N. Fallacy of reification. Most common. For example, gravity made us. Gravity is not a person. That's that's fallacy. They're going to say Big Bang. Big Bang is not a person. I can't do anything. It's a law. It's not a lawgiver. This is so common. This is the most common one. So whenever we ask them who, they give us what? I'm sorry, I'm asking you who. Agency, not mechanism, right? Fallacy, that's so common. It's ridiculous, actually. Because even children today, they laugh at you, you said that. You asked them who and he told you how. Number 2 fallacy, fallacy of equivocation. So they say, they use words that have double meanings to hide. For example, when they say, do you believe evolution? Your answer is, which one? Micro or macro? Micro, macro. Darwinism, Marxism, or which one? You're not going to say just evolution. What is that? That's not scientific. So we already said before, when they use equivocal language, don't answer. Ijmal, yurit ishkal. So when someone tells you evolution, that's not scientific. Which one? Which type? Very important qaida. Never take someone's equivocal statement and say, which one are you talking about? Macro? I don't have a problem with that one. Macro, it's not scientific. Darwinism is not. See, when you talk like that, he gets upset because now you're talking tafsir. And they don't like that because if you're going down there, let's go. Let's go, science. We're going to study, we're going to talk about. We're not going to just talk about evolution. And then when you tell them what does evolution mean, change over time. What is that? That's not evolution. Change over time, everything changes over time. You too. Right? You're growing up this way. When you're young, you grow this way. When you get older, you grow this way. As one guy made a joke, right? All of us are still growing, right? So the point, that's not evolution. Change over time. What is that? It's natural selection, universal common ancestor, right? This is what we're talking about. We're talking about, the actual beliefs, not evolution. So even the awam, they say evolution. What is this? What does that mean? But if you ask him and he tells you, then we get into details. So be careful of equivocation. And qaida fiqhiyya, we also have aqadiyya, and also there's a principle from another wajadil. You always try to go details. التفصيل يبين السبيل والإشكال والإجمال يورث الإشكال. That's very important. So you never just go with the ijmalat. Number 3, the fallacy of begging the question. Very common one. So instead of proving something, they just repeat it in different ways. So example of this is we said evolution. Evolution is real because all animals or species have shared anatomy due to homology. And homology proves evolution. That's circular reasoning. So I'm asking, what's the proof of homology? They're going to say evolution. What's the proof of evolution? Homology. No, I'm sorry. That's circular reasoning. They're begging the question as well. Right? So they assume something and they go from it without actually proving it. Or for example, they will bring you circular reasoning. D, the complex question fallacy. So they ask an invalid question and ask you to answer it. Who created God? Invalid. Can God create a rock so big he can't carry it? Invalid. It's paradoxes, all invalid. Don't answer it. That's how you deal with it. So if someone asks you a paradox, tell them, hey, that's all you got? Come on, let's be rational here. Don't bring me something like this. So the way you answer him, you don't answer it. So that's not logical. Number 5 is it the bifurcation fallacy. Bifurcation is a fancy way of saying is or false dilemma. Maybe that's the easy way of saying false dilemma. So either you believe in evolution or you believe in God. Nope, you can believe in both. So you have to break that. So when they do the false dilemma, they do it on purpose. Either you believe in evolution or you believe in religion. You believe in science or religion. How about both? Like Newton, isn't he science and they didn't believe in God and he's science? So whenever they give you a false dilemma, you always go with the third. A, B, we ask them, where's C? So never go with the bifurcation. It's a very common fallacy. Most of the Western thought is like this. Right? Soul, immaterial, material. Why? Muslims believe in body and soul. Right? Dualism. They can't believe in this. It's always one or the other. They have a big problem with this. There's a big problem with this one. Another one, ad hominem attacks. They usually resort to that, right? So most new atheists are called new atheists because they have such bad tongues, foul language. Another one, faulty appeal to authority, right? So just saying, oh, scientific community said, so what? Allah said, I told you, right? I'm telling you, Allah said, He doesn't respect the scientific community. That's a fault, that's authority that we don't have to accept. Strawman fallacy, we know that one too. Let's talk about this one. Conflating, when they mix between possibility and plausibility. Something that's possible doesn't mean it's plausible. Something that's possible doesn't always mean it's plausible. It's possible that scientific theories or arguments they're presenting are correct, or maybe they're not. I'm asking you what's plausible. For example, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam's miracles, they're possible, not impossible. If someone says impossible, he's already in trouble. He has to prove that. It's possible. Okay, is it plausible that he's lying, making it up, doing magic, or is it not plausible? So some of them, when you ask them this, they get stuck. They always choose the possible and get to run away from the plausible. I'm asking you, inference the best explanation. Come on, line best fit. What's more likely? He's a liar, he's a prophet, he's a magician, sorcerer. You tell me. If he says liar, he has problem in history. All his companions, all his enemies say he doesn't lie. If he say he didn't do it, then all these reports, authentic reports say he did. If he say he's a magician, where did he learn magic? You see, they give you, so that's one way you pose it. You ask them, okay, I believe he's a prophet. What would you think? Right? So Christians, you can do it too, right? I think Muhammad says in the Quran. What do you think? One guy told me it's Jibreel. I didn't know Jibreel was Arab. Right? SubhanAllah, he was Arab. I thought he was an angel. As a pastor, guys, imagine he's a pastor. He said, okay, I got to read it. I said, come on, man. When the angels have a lineage? Anyways, let's go here. Natural laws. Atheists, they confuse natural laws as being independent instead of believing that Allah can act through the natural laws. This one's important for the Muslims to know too. Allah's af'al, His actions, can appear in accordance to natural law or outside natural law. You have to know this. Ibn Daqiq al-Eidi writes in Ihkam al-Ahkam, volume 1, page 349. Allah's af'al sometimes is in accordance to natural law and sometimes outside of it. When it's outside of it, we call it a miracle. When it's going with it, it's still af'al Allah. They say natural law. Okay, watch this. When we tell them about the solar eclipse, there's a natural cause that we know, right? Sun, moon, okay, and the earth rotation. And why is it happening this time? And how does it? Allah is doing it. Why? Allah cannot be, actions can be in accordance to His own law He made. Allahul khalq wal amr. Doesn't He have the amr and the khalq? He always believed there's a natural law, it's independent of Allah. So when they say, where's the miracle? We tell them, you can see right now. Why do you always assume Allah's actions are outside His natural law? So when they tell you, we could not find any evidence of miraculous behavior, what are you looking for? You always ask them, what are you looking for? Embryology is a miracle, right? How does a sperm that has no mind, no attention, no agency create a creation? They're going to say, well, the mechanism, I ask you how and why and what. They're thinking that if Allah creates a child, He has to create how He gave Maryam Isa. That's called a miracle, but this one's also a miracle because Allah shows us both. The problem today, brothers and sisters, we have to understand that. They always think that the lines or Allah's actions have to be outside of it for us to detect it. No, that's not how it works. And the last one I'm going to mention, they give preference to dhanniyat, speculative arguments, or against qat'iyat. It's absolute fallacy. Dhanniyat or speculative, inductive, possibly changing theories or beliefs, and they give preference to that against the qat'iyat. Like what? When the scientific theories, which are dhanni, are given preference over the Quranic verses, which are qat'i. So when they say, do you believe evolution? Quran is wrong. Which one is dhanni? Evolution, right? Your macroevolution, absolute dhanni. It's not even dhanni, it's wahmi. It's imaginative. It's not even scientific, really. But you tell them, okay, and the Quran verse said, Allah created Adam like this. No children. That's qat'i. It cannot be overridden by dhanni. Ibn Taymiyyah gives another example. When atheists, they try to use elaborate theories to go against axiomatic basic beliefs. Example, quantum mechanics disproves causality. This is غير عاقل. It's غير معقول. It doesn't make sense. غير معقول. How can something elaborate, Ibn Taymiyyah says in Minhaj al-Sunnah, if you want to get the volume 2, page 151. He says, you can't, watch this, he says here, فالأقيسة القادحة في تلك أحكام فطرية بديهية أقيسة نظرية والنظريات مؤلفة من بديهيات فلو جاز القدح في البديهيات بالنظريات لزم الفساد البديهيات والنظريات. He says that the law theories which are based on what we call today like basic first principles, let's say science based on causality, right? You can't use something based on causality to come and attack causality because it's based on causality to begin with. Quantum mechanics is based on math and calculation, which are themselves a priori. They cannot be used to deny causality, which is also a priori. That doesn't work. So what do? Every theory that they have, imma dhanni, otherwise it's either dhanni or it's qat'i. If it's qat'i, Quran and Sunnah with it. Quran and Sunnah never oppose qat'iyat, guys. Remember that. Sky is blue, no problem. Earth is round, no problem. Evolution, not the same category. See this? It's a fallacy. See, some of us we get stuck. If it's qat'i, we're with it. With dhanni and Quran is qat'i, nope. But here's the problem. You're going to bring your dhanniyat, or he's going to use dhanniyat to go get bidahiyat. Assalamu alaikum. That's not aql. Minhaj al-Sunnah, volume 2, page 151. You have to understand that. That's the easiest way to just break down the house. You're telling me all this, mashallah, calculations and complicated premises is proving that God doesn't exist? How did you even get there? How do you get here if God doesn't exist? How did your argument get here? You can't even account for yourself, but you have a whole elaborate argument. God doesn't exist. You are proof. وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ. But see what they're going to do? I'm a proof. I'm so smart. I've denied the one who gave me intelligence to begin with. Right? Sounds familiar? I'm so smart. God doesn't exist. But who even gave you the freedom to think that way? Who gave you the logic? So here we have to understand this one. This is very powerful. Finally, atheism, if you want to see why it's wrong, look at the lawazim, the conclusions and entailments of the aqidah. And this is the easiest to present to lay people. If someone says, I'm thinking about atheism is correct, we tell them, look at the lawazim. And as a qa'idah, anything that has a false conclusions, if you want to know something's wrong, look at the lazim qawl. Look at the entailments of a belief or actions. Examples. Atheists conclude there is no creator or the origin for the universe. That doesn't make much. That's one of their beliefs. They also conclude there is no objective morality. They also have to conclude bilazim that there is no human rights or human exceptionality. Because if we all have a universal common ancestor, why are we special? Tell them, I dare you to prove human rights if Allah doesn't exist. There's no such thing. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Allah has to exist for human rights to exist. Because what does the Declaration of Independence say? We believe these are God-given rights. No God, no good. No God, no human speciality. Wallahi, they don't believe that, guys. And one of the best examples of atheists who changed his mind now, that guy in the UK, O'Connor guy, the young guy, he changed his views now too. Once he was arguing that panda is more human than us. He has double the pain sensors. A panda is more human? Or more because it has, come on, stuff like this. So tell him human rights only exist if Allah exists. You guys with me? So if you don't believe in Allah, there's no human rights, no human sexuality, no purpose in life. That's a lazim from the Aqidah. They say design is illusion, not reality. Allahu Akbar. Someone's going to take a look at the sunset and say, look at this. And you're like, sorry man, that's just illusion. That's someone's career. Imagine everyone's favorite activity to go see the sunset. What do you look at that? Nothing is beautiful here. It's not even real. That's what they're going to tell me. I'm sorry. The design is not really there. But he's going to marvel at the design of phones and technology and computers. See? Some will say, look at the design of what? Even Dawkins got stuck on this one. He said the universe is so beautifully designed. It's just an illusion, but it's so amazingly designed. How is it an illusion? Another one, no consciousness, no soul, no subjective experiences. Yep, atheists don't believe you even have emotions. Right? Sure, because you can't account for it. It's all material, no soul. Imagine, so the problem with that is like imagine an average person whose experiences, if you're suffering, sorry man, that's just in your head. You have nothing's going on there. That's how life is supposed to be. They have very weak explanatory power. That's the conclusion of their belief. They cannot explain the world around us. Forget the unseen. If you want to really test how Aqidah, the atheist Aqidah is corrupted, they can't account for the universe, forget about the Akhirah. So Allah says, يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيا, right? That's what they know, only the apparent. They can't even explain the apparent. Examples, phenomena like jinn, magic, near-death experiences, NEDs, miracles. They can't explain any of them. And you want proof, brothers and sisters? Go online. See how they're fascinated by hallucinogenic drugs. Why? Because it's showing us there's a world beyond physical. You know what's really happening? They're taking the drugs and they're meeting the jinn. Imagine, we're telling them, Sabah al-Khair, what's going on here? Like, imagine, this is the cutting edge stuff. We're telling them people are meeting them without the drugs. This is sad, guys. Wallahi, one of the atheists got so shocked by this, they went all the way to Brazil to take the drugs to prove it's wrong, and they still couldn't, because that's how fed up they got with it. We tell them, explain this. Miracles. If you ask now a person who lives in the world today, they're like, I have so many questions about this. Wallahi, Islam is the only religion that has all the answers. Only one. And you want proof? Jinn possession and magic and sorcery. We are number one. We have the most detailed information. No religion has it. And that's the proof itself Islam is correct. Why? Because if you ask someone, I know the ruqyah, I know what's happening, I know how to get out of your house, I know. It's for us so adi. For them, it's like a mystery. We tell him, ask the atheist. He's going to say something wrong with you. You're going to get some medication. Right? And also, their beliefs lead to more questions than solutions. So therefore, they cannot use Occam's razor. Occam's razor says if there's two theories which are equal in everything else, the one that's simpler goes forward. We say this is a problem with atheists. They always appeal to Occam's razor, which means the simplest explanation wins. The problem with them, your explanation doesn't even account for the facts, let alone for it to be chosen. So if I ask you today, here's all the data set. Which religion, which belief accounts for all of them? Islam. Atheism can't account for nothing. Not his origin, not his existence, not yours, not the akhirah. So these are the lawazim. That's next one and last one. High suicide rates and moral corruption vice. They can't ignore this. Uniquely atheistic. So we tell someone, if you think atheism is correct, why so many lawazim, al-batila, al-fasida? So we have a qaida, lazim, which is batil, right? Any type of lawazim, any conclusions or entailments of a belief which are falsehood, delil for what? يستلزم بطلان ملزوم. Batil lazim, the lazim, the conclusion for it to be falsehood is deleted the malzoom. What got you there is batil too. So if atheism leads to suicide, atheism must be wrong. It was with me. I won't deny that, because scientists they say today that religion is very good to keep you alive. It's like, yeah, we know that. But the problem we tell them is like, see, if someone's thinking about I want to become atheist, hey, do you want to stay alive? Don't go there. But some of the awam, they need to know this. They have to understand that if the atheism was correct, why so much? Then now compare the lawazim of Islam. Islam with the happiest religion and happiest people in the world, proven scientifically. We report it and it's proven. We see textually and scientifically. What else? Islam has high social support, so much stronger communities. Islam, we believe, for example, in family, we give more charity. Everything khair Islam gives. Wallahi, that's enough proof that Islam is correct. Just look at the lawazim, look at the lifestyle. Less murder, less violence, less drugs, less everything. Them more. So that means yours wrong, this is right. That's how the people before would judge which one has better. Now the last part, which is how do we engage with them? If you want to engage the atheists, it's recommended that you figure out the audience. Don't be hasty and argue with them. But there are some things you should be doing in the discussion with them. And I'm saying this because everyone's different, but I just want to mention some questions that can help you. Truth be told, atheists are not all the same, so it's not good to argue and be militant, aggressive. It's not correct. Be more wise, be gentle, because if you put haqq, you don't need to be nervous. Haqq cannot be overcome ever. Just remember that they have nothing, guys. Nothing they could bring you. Nothing. Imagine. Just like someone says, I have something about Islam, just know 100% he's ignorant. 100%. Anyone says the Quran has contradiction, 100% is jahil. 100%. Don't worry. And who said that? Zarqashi. Is anyone who says the Quran has contradiction, either mubtadi, either he's a beginner, or he's some person of misguidance who wants to try to spread misguidance. That's it. There's no third. There's no aqil, alim, who has shubhat. It doesn't exist. I'm saying that because sometimes we get too riled up. Look what he's asking you. But here's a question. You want to ask these questions in case you talk to anybody. Number one, ask why. Or what is the reason for that? This is one of the most easiest questions. It will frustrate them so much. Why? Ask why. And some of the ulama have made this a methodology of debate. I have to tell you a story now. It's so funny. It's called the argument lima. Why? And if you use the argument, it frustrates them because they can't answer it. So there's a story, Ash-Shatibi writes in his kitab Muwafaqat, No, عفوا, Al-I'tisam. Page 136 of the English. It's a funny story. It's mentioned by Imam Zahabi and Siyar Alam Nubidah. Abu Bakr Ismaili, rahimahullah, the famous Ahl Hadith scholar, he says one day, he said, I hated the kalam, ilm kalam, philosophy and rhetoric. So one day I went to the city of Rai and I entered the masjid and went to the pillar to offer 2 rak'ahs, and there I saw 2 men sitting there debating kalam. So I told myself, what an evil omen. These people are sitting here and I hate this subject. He says, and when I was praying, I heard them say, to myself, I thought, is this the first thing, if this is the first thing I hear when I come to a city, after I enter it, then it's what I dislike. So I made my salah short in order to move far away from them. But before I could, I heard one thing and I remember one thing they were saying. One of them said to the other, no doubt, the Bataniya, those Ismailis at that time, the Bataniya or Ismailis, at that time they were the big Ahl Kalam troublemakers. They had a lot of doubts. He says, the Bataniya, the guy said, are the most silliest people of Allah's creation. Any intelligent person should not lay upon himself difficulty of bringing evidence against them. Rather, he should ask them, right, about why, in this question. Ask him why, whenever they ask you something. So he said, when I finished my salah, one day, the story continues, and he says that what happened was, there was Ismailis who were promoting ilhad, atheism, or you could say disbelief. And a message was sent to Wash Makir, who was the Amir at that time, and he was told to him, I don't accept the religion, this man said, I don't accept the religion of Muhammad ﷺ without a miracle. So if you disclose it to us, then we will revert to your religion. So imagine the Amir gets a letter from Batani saying, unless you bring proof of miracles of Islam, I'm not going to accept your version of it or your Islam. So he says then what happened was that one of the people said to the Amir, it's our duty to protect our beliefs and creeds of people, so choose the best person in your kingdom to debate this guy. So the atheist carrier, when he got the message, the other one said to him, okay, let's choose Abu Bakr Ismaili. Abu Bakr Ismaili, there's no kalam. So he said then, they knew well, he was one of the scholars of Tawheed, but also Hadith scholar. So the leader, Wash Makir, had the impression that he was also knowledgeable about other things, like he knows all sciences. He said, I don't know the kalam, right? So they called for him, so he went all the way he said, and he was in Jurjan, so they invited me all the way to Ghazna. The story continues then, he had to come, and he said, I was so worried, because I didn't know the kalam this guy was going to bring, and I was worried, what am I going to do there? Defend Islam, and this guy's going to bring me some ilm kalam stuff, I don't know what to say. So anyways, he said, when I went there, I told myself, should I free myself from the obligation of the king? Should I just make an excuse? And I regretted the fact that I didn't study this. Then he said, Allah caused me to remember the speech of those 2 men in the masjid, that whatever they ask you, just ask them why. So he said, I remember that statement. So I went in there, he said, in debate, and the Batini began first. And he said a lot of arguments. And then he said, when he finished the argument, the Hafid said to him, what's your reason for that? And then he said, the atheist, the Batini, we heard that. He said, this man is very knowledgeable. And then he couldn't answer, so I left it. I ran away after that. And later on, he said, I learned the kalam stuff. Anyways, you can see that the ulama, they should know, or tulab ilm, some kalam for these purposes, but you can also see the power of why. It's a powerful argument. So much so that it's not only him, even Ibn Arabi Maliki happened to him. If you keep going, Shati mentioned his story too. It happened to him and he also defeated them. And that guy was even more dangerous. And that time he said, Ibn Arabi Maliki said that time the Ismailis were dangerous. They kill you too. So he said, I was in big trouble, man. If I beat them, they're going to kill me. So I had to come after he showed them, some knowledge and stuff. So they used the same argument. They defeated them. So this argument is powerful. Why? When you say why and you ask what is the reason, you push the atheist to explain himself. And remember, atheists, they can't explain the whys. They're always focused on the hows. And this is also because their aqidah, as we'll see, as we said already and we'll see it again, is always to do with what we call scientific explanation. So let's give some examples before we finish of how you can use why. You can ask the atheist why in the problem of evil. Can it not be true that Allah has wise reasons for allowing suffering for animals and children that we cannot access, we cannot access them, but still they exist? So we're asking the atheists, why is it possible, not possible? Allah has wise reasons for suffering, putting suffering for animals and children. That is a wisdom that we cannot access, yet it's still present and therefore meaningful. Why is that problematic? So you see, you put him in the corner there. Why? He will have to say, because God can't do that? What is he going to say? Because, that's the question. Why is it, for example, that for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or to present evil in the world, that we have to know the justification for it to be accepted. But if we don't know the justification, but we know Allah is all wise, it's still not just, it's still not considered wise. Means if I don't know why Allah did something, but I know He's wise, does not knowing why mean that it's not wise? Why is that? You see, this is the essence of their doubts, right? You ask them, so whatever He says, you ask Him why. So if He says that, you say, okay, how about that? And so these are examples of it. Let's give another example. Why do you, as atheists, accept black holes, quarks, atoms, and other entities which you have no material evidence for them, but you confirm that they are necessary for explaining the universe, but you reject other entities which you cannot see, like God, jinn, and angels? This is tahakkum wa-tashahi. Why? Why is quarks logical? Black holes and dark energy, but Allah is not. Remember, there's nobody ever seen. So they're going to say, because we have the effects of the atoms. طيب, انظر إلى آثار رحمة الله. Look at Allah's mercy and His signs of it. You see, they can't tell you anything. The only thing we have to say, because I'm a materialist, I don't believe in God. Khalas, it's not rational then. It's just tahakkum. You believe in whatever you choose. And that's not aqeedah. See, the question is important, is why, but you have to get to the bottom. So what do? You figure out what he's saying, and you say why. Why can't it be like this and not like that? And what's going to happen? He's going to fluster, because most of the time they don't like to answer questions, or they don't have it. For example, the famous discussion between Richard Dawkins and that presenter, he asked him, why can't there be? He says, why? He got flustered. He said something so silly. Imagine Richard Dawkins, he's supposed to be their imam. He's just like, yeah. So this is him, the guy who's the most... So what does that tell about the layperson, guys? Layperson, do you think you can't ask him why? Why is the most difficult question. And the second question I'm going to finish with, ask who instead of how. Ask who. So atheists, they don't like who. Right? Richard Dawkins, when they say who, say, why do you say who? Because I know you don't have a who. That's what I'm asking you. What do you think? I'm foolish? But why do you say who? They don't like it. So why is it? Because atheists believe in scientific explanations. And we said in our class, scientific explanations are approximate. That means they give you the mechanism. They also believe in naturalism, so they don't believe in immaterial things. They like to avoid ultimate explanations. Remember that. Ultimate explanation means why? Who? So, Richard Dawkins, when he was asked that question, he got angry. He said, why do you ask who? It's on YouTube, right? The key to the question is to expose their reasons for choosing mechanism over agency. Example. Ask the atheist who keeps the entropy of the universe so low despite billions of years of existence. See, he gets angry when he says who. If you said to him the same way, I can ask different way. Why? Why is the entropy of the universe so low despite being 13.9 billion years? Shouldn't it be more? Shouldn't it be like more chaos? Why is it so constant? Wallahi, we said before, Brian Greene, the physicist, he said, I can't sleep at night because of discussion. See, that's one of the big guys. That's a real scientist, not some miskin guy in the YouTube. I'm asking you why, I'm asking you who. He said it almost feels like somebody's doing it. Yeah, exactly. But you see, when you ask him why, no answer. Who? Even worse. How another one? Who made the universe when it has a beginning, and we know it cannot bring itself into existence, means nothing produces nothing. So the atheist, if you say who made the universe, either he'll get upset or he'll answer by saying how it came into existence, Big Bang or evolution, or he'll give the chance, which is not entity, fallacy of verification, or he'll say math or gravity, fallacy of verification. We're asking for who, and he will do also, finally, he'll evade the question. If you evade the question, you won the debate, because the principle in debate, al-haydatu an al-jawabi dalalatu an inqita'i al-hujjah. Anyone who evades the question is proof that he has no argument. What's the proof of that? The very famous Salafi scholar, Abdul Al-Kitani, when he argued with Bishop Marisi and he asked him about Allah's attributes, he ran from the question. In front of the Emir, right? He defeated him so bad, he asked him, ask him. And he changed the question. Hayda, that's what it's called. The book is called Hayda. Hayda means to evade, to duck. So whoever ducks the question has no reply. I ask you who, don't tell me how. Now your turn. And when he says, I don't know, khalas. So Allah doesn't exist, but you don't know. And you don't care to know. Right? You want us to talk about how. Finally, brothers and sisters, because this topic is huge, right? This summary, inshallah, will capture most of what we said. Otherwise, we should try our best to do da'wah to people, according to the Quran and Sunnah, and what's the capacity of it. Learning more about why people fall into disbelief is also important. For example, our Muslim community, our youth, why they turn towards it. Mu'allim, if you want more, go to his kitab. Al-Mu'allimi Kitab Yusr al-Aqidah Islamiyya. In there he has a section, Al-Ba'ith al-Mutashakkikin ala Israrihim ala Da'wah al-Shak, why he talks about why people become atheists. And he mentions some good points about the nature of people's atheism. He also talks about in there why people also have problems with Islam. So it's good to know that, right? Because not everybody's like not rational. Somebody watches Fox News. You gotta know that, right? And I say, okay, this guy is just watching bad channels. So instead of getting all this toolkit, it's not gonna work for that guy. Or sir, there's a better channels. You shouldn't take from its source. So sometimes it's important to pay attention to that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide them. Inshallah, otherwise we'll end with this much. I know it took a long time, but if anyone has any quick questions or anything, we can present in this before we finish. Yes.
The means of dawah, can we perform ruqya in front of non-Muslims?
Ruqya is a type of da'wah. Bill is asking, when you ruqya in front of the kafir, so da'wah, it's Nabi Sallallahu did not do that, but it is a type of display of Islam. But the problem is that doing ruqya, since it's a type of a medicine cure and has in it also qira'ah, you should not be done except as needed. The better substitute is read the Quran. The Prophet Sallallahu used to read the Quran onto the people, and they became Muslim like that. The Ansar, how they become Muslim in Treaty of Aqaba, Nabi read the ayat to them, and he convinced them. They said, okay, next year they came back and they became the leader. Also, we know the example of Najashi, rahimahullah, he became Muslim because Ja'far ibn Abdul Muttalib read Surah Maryam to him. So I also have seen it before. If you read Quran, it works. Some people read Quran to them, it became Muslim. So it works. So that's the best one because that's what you're supposed to recite it. And the reason why is because one of the miracles of the Quran is its impact on the listener. Right? So they always look at it like, wow, what was that beautiful voice? But ruqya is a proof as well. But what you need to know, you have to answer the question of ruqya. Most kafirs, they suffer with issues of jinn possession and stuff like that because they don't know about it. So when you tell them what to do, and they were like amazed. I'm telling you, today, like people are like doing drugs, man, to find this stuff out. That's how bad it is. So you tell them, listen, I'll give you Ayatul Kursi. They don't even know that because what they know is the holy water, right? The Christians come with a fake holy water, it doesn't do nothing. Right? Probably brings one in there, who knows, right? And then later on, they're going to say, and it's very interesting to think about this because now, if you tell somebody, I have an answer, the question he's struggling with, what is it? He knows it's something, but the other guy's going to say, there's nothing. See, that's why it's powerful. But it's better to use the Quran. Wallahu a'lam. Yes, brother. So if someone says there's a divine purpose of life or a purpose of life without God, then yes, like that purpose is subjective, not objective. So we can all have subjective purposes like going to work is my life. That's not objective, that's just subjective. So we tell them that you can do that, but you're just masking the problem. If you have a phone, it comes with a manual, right? And it comes with a name. So scholars say anyone who makes something has the right to name it. Allah created us, He calls us insan, and He calls us Muslimin. So the maker can name it. The maker also decides the purpose. So if you have no maker, you have no purpose. If you have a maker, you need objective purpose, otherwise your life is not going to be meaningful. So what do the atheists do? They borrow from religion, and they say, I have a purpose of life. Yeah, because you're doing everything we're doing. Why are you giving sadaqah? Why do you have it? Why do you have all the celebrations? Atheists, they found out we can't do this. We have no social connection. We're lonely. So they just copy religion. Same thing with human rights. Human rights are based on God. So they took the rights without God. That's not purposeful. It's not objective. It's subjective. And if it's subjective, then the purpose is not going to be meaningful. And this also doesn't sustain. So that's how you get them. Because they say, how come we can't have a life without God? Right? Humanism, right? Humans' condition counts most because we're humans. We tell them, Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah says in the argument, whoever made you, right? If you didn't make yourself, you don't have an intent for yourself. If your murad, your intent for your existence must come from the one who put you into existence. If you don't have the capacity to create yourself, you don't have the right capacity to determine your direction. And how is the proof of that? Human beings always desire to connect to something. So we connect to the Creator because He made us. But if you made yourself, you can decide for yourself. Since you didn't make yourself, find out who made you and why. It's simple, right? But the problem, they say we don't need it, okay? Show me what you have, but also your subjectivity doesn't create the results and goods. The good result is happiness. Allah says in the Quran, those who believe in Allah and good deeds, they're going to give them the good life. Again, we're number one. They're not. That's the whole point. If you ask who happiest people, Muslims. We have Qadr, that's another thing they can't even deal with. Qadr and Qadar is the X factor. We have a whole system, Qadr and Qadar. Them looking around, complaining and upset. I thought you were good without God. No God, no good. Right? I thought you have a question, brother?
Yeah, kind of a follow-up for this question. Like the universal, how do I describe it? The universal belief, is it a logical way or is it philosophical way to think about it and to approach it?
So the idea that belief is universal, like that, yeah, it's called a communal consent argument. So there's some atheists who don't agree with it. But we say it's not itself an argument, but it's a proof that there is a objectivity. So God's existence and belief in it is the most common belief in the history of mankind. That will require us to explain why. So atheists before would say because scientifically or sociologically, everyone was teaching their kids faith. Only now that we have more faith. But we say that doesn't work because if children across the world are all confirming a belief, there's some kind of transcendency here. Something's transcending us. Objective morality, same thing. Why do we all believe killing is bad? It transcends human experience and condition. Therefore, it cannot be subjective. So we tell them the communal consent argument, it's saying that since most people believe in God, there must be some truth to it. But we're not going to use it by itself because they're going to say, well, just because most people believe something doesn't mean it's right. We say we agree with you because they're going to say if everyone believed in God, why everyone had a different view of God? That's what they say. We tell them that's because Allah's testing us. Go back to that point. Some belief is right, some is wrong. But it's like scientific belief. Scientific belief, there's a consensus, and there's differences. So we tell them the fact that scientific conclusion, independently, all reach a conclusion, suggests that there's some kind of truth to scientific method, that we can conclude these things. But the problem many of the atheists they have is that they can't answer that question. So the reason why is because they always thought that this is how the world was. Today we're saying we have scientific evidence showing that the children are born this way. Second thing we're knowing is that people's upbringing impacts their living. And we also know that people believe in God because it actually is the most rational conclusion. This is the part they try to avoid. But we tell them to look at it both ways. Rational proof, scientific and innateness go together. So theistic innateness is actually a strong argument. Because the question is not about does it prove religion. I want to know why is it going to why. Why is it universal? He's going to say, before he have an answer, now they're like, I don't know. And what they also might do, they might tell you the study's wrong. Astaghfirullah. So that's another thing. If the study is wrong, then khalas, we don't need science. Remember, if science can be updated, haqq cannot be updated. So that's why we have to keep using it. But that's a good point. You can research the communal consent argument. This is what they call it. طيب إن شاء الله وين ما تسمع سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا